going on, a little bit of a culture war going on here, where you've got some very sort of, I guess, some fairly self-righteous people who have a strong. I mean, I it's strange because I do slightly come from the background of the anti-gambling lobby because my grandfather was an MP, and he was very anti-gambling, and this is my father's father, and so I sort of grew up with that around me, and I would arguing the opposite, because I think that there's potential here to cause enormous damage to racing by making it so difficult for people to bet that they're just going to give up and do something else. And it's a slightly sort of nanny state attitude towards it, and it's not. And we talk about the kind of a woke environment that's leading to this, but actually, I think what's happening is that there is a sort of the social justice warriors on Twitter to sort of change things in a certain way. I mean, that's definitely happening, but I think this review is coming from from the kind of what I would see as the old style nanny state. People who've been around for a very long time, don't like gambling, but sort of see this kind of shift in this kind of culture shift as an opportunity to go in there and make a few changes that they've wanted to make for a long time. I think they could cause a lot more damage to racing than they realize, because they may have the best intentions, and in some cases, I think betting companies have been allowed to push out the boundaries in ways which are improper and unhealthy. I mean, a lot of the changes they've made in the last decade or two are, I think they're not looking after the sort of the addicted punter in the manner in which they should. And I mean, the moment you sign up with a betting company, they'll quickly be sort of trying to steer you into their internet casinos, and if you go into the betting shop, there's a great big fob tee sitting there, and they're incredibly easy to lose money at sort of rapid speed, and all of this sort of stuff, which is just kind of capitalism, really. It's just bookmakers saying, "Oh, we can make more money if we do this and do this and do this," and has absolutely nothing to do with racing.
Just for the benefit of our listeners, FOBT are the fixed
odds betting terminals.
Fixed odds betting terminals, exactly. Yeah.
So the kind of this the thing that looks like a fruit machines but isn't, that's in your betting shop, and they were just. I mean, the bookmakers saw them as an easy way to create a casino in their betting shop because they weren't allowed to have casinos. And they've just pushed the law out and out and out, and built these things so that they're always sort of bending the existing law. So they're always sort of exploiting little loopholes so that they can have things where you can gamble faster and put more money in and make more money out of, and so on and so forth. And all that has sort of kind of moved them more and more into the role of the bad guy, and it's given more and more power behind the arguments being put up by the lobby. And so, I mean, I've always seen those forms of gambling as slightly unhealthy, and I've always seen social forms of gambling like betting on horses to be healthy. I mean, apart from anything else, if you're a good punter, you can make money backing horses. And it's intellectual and it's social, and people are out and about, and they're at the race course, and they're mixing with other people, they're having a good time. It's a proper hobby, and it employs a load of people. I mean, there's a stack of reasons why racing is an incredibly important and special sport in this country, and it needs protection. And actually, to some extent, is being undermined by the bookmakers, who are finding ways to make money in their bookmaker shops that don't involve racing. And to some extent, the government is to blame because they didn't stop them doing it in the first place. And so the whole thing got a little bit out of hand. So I can see them wanting to, take control and say, well, things have changed so much, we need to get a grip here. But this is going to damage racing. It's going to be incredibly damaging for racing. And we can't just stand by and let it happen and see our sport damaged by, essentially by do-gooders. But they're sort of, they have a self-righteousness about them, and they are a little bit of, it feels to me as if they're a little bit of a bubble, and they're not really getting what's going on here, and they're not really necessarily understanding the damage they're going to cause. So we have to push back. To my mind, we have to push back very aggressively and say all this affordability stuff is nonsense. We can't have it. We can't be having it. Someone doesn't come to you and say, can you really afford to buy this item on eBay? Can you afford to buy that dress? We can't have a government who is standing over us, sort of examining every single purchase that we make, and then deciding whether or not we can afford to do it. That to me is madness.
Okay, Andrew, look, we've really enjoyed having you on, as I said. You're a very busy man, so thank you for your time. Phil and I wish you and Jane every success with Chasemore Farm. Hope you breed lots of winners. Thank you very much for coming on Inside the Rails.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, Phil, yet again, we've not been disappointed. Another fascinating guest. I was particularly interested in Andrew's thoughts on the gambling review. And in fact, he's got two sides to the family. One have been historically pro-gambling and one anti-gambling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Somebody said to me the other day that when Andrew speaks, they could listen to him talking for a long time. And I think I'd be in that camp as well. I thought he was a fascinating guest. Now, I know I mentioned it at the start of the episode, but I will do so again. Thanks so much to everybody for listening. And can you help us to grow the podcast? If you could make a Twitter, Facebook or LinkedIn post to tell people you've been listening to the show, and especially if you enjoyed it, that would be amazing. And if you could mention the podcast to your racing friends, that would also be brilliant.
Well, that just leaves me to thank co-host Phil Boyle from BG Racing, our special guest Andrew Black, producer Callum Ronan from Callum Ronan Creative, and of course you, the listeners. While there's still a lot of difficult stuff going on in the world of horse racing, Messrs Dettori and Gosden have made up. The smaller owners, trainers and jockeys have plundered some big prizes, and Solario Racing might just book a season ticket to Redcar. This is Simon Double from Solario Racing saying goodbye.